Planet Reddit. Today's story is...
My family forced me to give a speech at my ex's wedding to my sister. They didn't know that I knew their secret. Allow me to share my situation. I am 30 years old and I find myself in the middle of a family dilemma that I need to share in order to get impartial opinions. This story involves my ex-partner, my younger sister and my parents, and as you can imagine, things have not ended well at all. It all started when I met Jake, a 32-year-old man who seemed to be everything I had dreamed of. For 3 years, our relationship seemed perfect on the surface. He was charismatic, had a good sense of humor and appeared to be understanding. However, now I can see the signs that I chose to ignore. He always protected his phone with excessive zeal, claiming it was for work-related matters. He would disappear without explanation for long periods of time, and when I expressed my concern, he had a special way of making me feel guilty for doubting him. He always found the right words to reassure me when my doubts arose, so I ended up convincing myself that they were just my insecurities. The moment of truth came during a family gathering at my parents' house. My sister Mia, 27, had insisted very much on my presence, arguing that it had been a long time since I had spent time with the family. I reluctantly agreed, not imagining what I would discover. During the gathering, I noticed Jake's prolonged absence and decided to look for him. My steps took me to the guest room, where I found the scene that would change everything. Jake and Mia were together in a situation that confirmed my worst suspicions. The impact was so strong that I felt as if the world had stopped. As they tried to explain themselves, Jake babbled about a special connection with Mia, and she insisted that they were soulmates, as if that phrase justified months of deceit and betrayal. The nausea I felt was immediate, and I left there driving through tears, miraculously arriving home without an accident. What followed was just as painful. My parents minimized the situation, treating it as if it were a simple, inevitable youthful romance. Their attitude suggested that my pain was a minor inconvenience compared to the true love between Jake and Mia. Faced with this situation, I decided to cut off all communication with Jake and Mia, and keep my distance from my family. Over time, I managed to rebuild my life, focusing on my professional development and building new friendships. The surprise came some time later in the form of an invitation to Jake and Mia's wedding. My first reaction was a resounding no. How could I witness their union after such a betrayal? However, my parents launched a persistent campaign of calls, messages, and surprise visits, insisting that my absence would generate gossip and affect the family's reputation. My mother used a particularly effective argument: "We are not asking you to forgive them, just to show maturity. The family comes before grudges." Her words resonated with me, and although I kept my emotional distance, I decided to attend to show that I had moved on. The situation took an unexpected turn when Mia started sending me messages bragging about her victory and claiming that Jake had always preferred her. What really caught my attention were some messages she sent apparently under the influence of alcohol, where she revealed that the wedding was part of a plan to secure Jake's family inheritance. Her parents were putting pressure on them to prove that they were worthy of inheriting the family fortune, and the wedding was the final piece of this puzzle. On the day of the wedding, although part of me wanted to turn back, I remained discreet in my seat. However, my parents insisted that I give a speech as a show of support. After a lot of pressure, especially from my father with his authoritarian tone, I agreed again out of family obligation. Standing in front of all the guests, I experienced a moment of absolute clarity. I began by talking about love and its surprises, the importance of honesty and trust. Then I shared my story, my relationship with Jake, my hopes for a future together, and how it all fell apart because of the betrayal of two people I trusted. However, I maintained a calm and reflective tone, emphasizing the lessons about resilience and self-love that I had learned. I addressed Jake's parents in particular, thanking them for their kindness during my relationship with him and expressing my hope that they would learn the full truth about the couple's decisions. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake's parents left the celebration visibly upset, while Mia lost control, shouting at me that I had ruined her special day. Jake tried unsuccessfully to calm her down, and my parents were embarrassed, but I felt an inner peace that I had not experienced in years. I later learned from close sources that Jake's parents were considering disinheriting him, citing his disgraceful behavior as the reason. The future that Mia and Jake had planned was falling apart, and they both blamed me for it. Mia continues to send me accusatory messages, calling me selfish and vindictive, but I stand firm in my decision. The truth needed to come out, regardless of the consequences. A week has passed and Mia's messages have not stopped, questioning my character and my actions. Although I am beginning to feel the weight of her accusations, I ask myself, did I really do wrong by exposing the truth at her wedding? Update 1. Hello everyone. I didn't expect my post to receive so much attention, but I deeply appreciate all the responses and perspectives that have been shared with me. I feel I must explain in more detail why I decided to attend the wedding when I could have avoided it altogether. My decision to attend was motivated by a desire to show my family that I was not the resentful person they imagined. I wanted to close that chapter of my life and, in a way, prove to myself that I had overcome the pain they caused me. However, I must be honest, part of me wanted to make a statement. They had hurt me deeply, and I felt that no one had really understood the magnitude of the betrayal of Jake and Mia, two people in whom I had placed all my trust. Looking back, I recognize that my speech had an element of revenge. It wasn't just about exposing the truth, I wanted Jake and Mia to feel even a fraction of the pain they had caused me. But I have no regrets. During my suffering, no one raised their voice to defend me. No one told Jake and Mia that their actions were wrong. My family chose to ignore the situation, and Jake's parents, despite their kindness during our relationship, never held him accountable for his actions. So no, I don't regret telling my side of the story. The fallout after the wedding was immediate. Jake's parents were outraged and, as I learned from mutual acquaintances, they had always prided themselves on maintaining an unblemished reputation. When they heard the truth about the beginning of Jake and Mia's relationship, they were deeply embarrassed. Jake's mother was particularly upset to discover that her son had lied to her about the chronology of his relationships with me and with Mia. For them, it was unthinkable to leave their inheritance to someone who lacked moral principles. It wasn't just about my speech, it was about Jake's pattern of dishonesty and the shame he had brought to their family name. As a result, they cut off all contact with Jake and Mia. Weeks later, I found out from a mutual friend about the financial problems Jake and Mia were facing. Without the financial backing of Jake's parents, they were struggling to maintain the luxurious lifestyle they had planned. The wedding had been a considerable expense and they had counted on the inheritance to cover it. Now, without that financial backing, they were desperate. Mia was especially affected. She had always dreamed of a life of comfort, and now she found herself dealing with mounting debts. Her messages began aggressively and accusingly. She blamed me entirely for their situation, claiming that I had destroyed their future and turned Jake's parents against them. She accused me of being selfish and vindictive, of having ruined their happiness out of resentment. Then she changed her strategy and began to demand that I apologize publicly to Jake's parents. She wanted me to tell them that I had exaggerated the situation and misrepresented our relationship in my speech. Mia even suggested that I should beg them to reconsider their decision. Her demands were absurd. She wanted me to humiliate myself again to resolve a situation that she and Jake had created. It was almost laughable. After their betrayal and all the pain they caused me, she had the audacity to ask me to fix their mess. I refused outright and made it clear to her that I was not responsible for her decisions or their consequences. If Jake's parents had decided to cut ties with them, it was not because of my speech, but because of their own actions. They had built their relationship on lies and betrayal, and now they faced the consequences of those decisions. It was not my responsibility to rescue them. After that, I blocked Mia and moved on. For years I had carried the weight of her betrayal, but I finally felt like I had moved on. Her problems were her own and she had no interest in involving me. For the first time in a long time, I feel at peace. It's been a week since I blocked Mia and honestly, it feels liberating. No one else has contacted me since, and I hope I'm not tempting fate by saying so. Either way, I have a lot more to focus on than unnecessary drama. I'll stay out of all this. If I get involved again, I'll keep you posted. Until then, goodbye. Update 2. Well, it seems I tempted fate in my last update. I know, rookie mistake, but a few weeks have passed and enough has happened to warrant an update. Here goes. After blocking Mia and deciding to move on, I thought the drama was over, but my family had other plans. A week and a half after ignoring Mia's demands, my parents contacted me insisting that we all get together to sort things out. According to them, my speech had created an unnecessary division in the family, and it was my responsibility to fix it. They were concerned about the difficulties Mia and Jake were going through, and felt that I should take responsibility for my part in their problems. The situation became so tense that I decided to confront it directly by meeting them at our usual cafe. During the meeting, my parents portrayed me as a spiteful and vindictive person. They accused me of clinging to the past and called my speech at the wedding unnecessary. They insisted that I should be more mature and show common sense. They reminded me that family is the most important thing and that Mia was still my sister, no matter what had happened. In their view, my actions had not only hurt Jake and Mia, but had also shamed the whole family. They pressured me to contact Jake's parents and apologize for escalating the situation, believing that this might help improve things for Mia and Jake. Their arguments did not surprise me, but they still hurt. They continued to minimize what Jake and Mia had done to me. They acted as if I should just forget about it because time had passed. They never acknowledged the pain their betrayal caused me. Instead, they focused on how my actions had made Mia's situation worse. Everything revolved around Mia's future, Mia's happiness, Mia's relationship. Once again, my feelings didn't seem to matter. As no one defended me or considered my perspective, I knew I had to stand firm, and that was exactly what I did. I told them clearly that I would not apologize for telling the truth. I reminded them that Mia and Jake's relationship began with a betrayal, and if they were now facing consequences, it was not my fault. I pointed out how they had never held Mia accountable for her actions and how they always expected me to be the one to give in. I told them that I was tired of being the one who cleaned up other people's messes. If Mia and Jake had problems, it was their responsibility to solve them, not mine. My parents tried to reason with me, arguing that Mia, Jake, and I were young and that these things happened at that age, but I refused to accept those justifications. I got so frustrated that I ended up leaving the cafe and turned off my phone to avoid further arguments. Despite being sure of my position, I began to feel guilty. I know I did nothing wrong, and many of you have pointed this out to me. You have even advised me to stop feeling guilty about everything. Believe me, I'm working on it. But something happened that day. My parents' words kept echoing in my mind, making me feel as if I had been too harsh, as if perhaps my speech had been excessive. I began to wonder if there was more to the story with Jake's parents. Had my speech really been the reason for their disinheritance, or was there something else I didn't know about? Curiosity and guilt led me to contact Jake's parents. I wanted to hear their side of the story directly. Surprisingly, Jake's parents were willing to talk to me. They explained that they had been unhappy with Jake long before the wedding, but had not acted until my speech made things clear to them. They told me that Jake had lied to them about several aspects of our relationship, including his professional achievements, and had pretended to be financially independent when in fact he depended on them. They had suspected his behavior for some time, but did not want to confront him without concrete evidence. My speech at the wedding was the decisive point. It confirmed their suspicions. Jake was dishonest and manipulative. They were particularly disappointed by how he started the relationship with Mia, as it showed a complete lack of integrity. Jake's mother said they felt betrayed because they expected better behavior from him. My speech was not the reason they cut ties with Jake, it simply validated the concerns they already had. They made it clear that their decision was based on years of observing Jake's behavior, not just the revelations at the wedding. They also thanked me for my honesty and expressed their admiration for how I handled the situation at the wedding, acknowledging how difficult it must have been for me. Hearing this was like a weight had been lifted. For a long time, I felt like no one understood how much Jake and Mia's betrayal had hurt me. Knowing that Jake's parents saw the truth and valued my perspective made me feel validated in a way that my own family never had. After that conversation, I felt calmer. I understood that my speech was not the root cause of Jake and Mia's problems. Their difficulties were a consequence of their own decisions and actions, not mine. I have carried so much guilt over the years, but now I see that I did nothing wrong in defending myself. If anything, I helped Jake's parents make a decision they had been putting off for a long time. My family, of course, doesn't see it that way. They continue to pressure me to reconcile with Mia, but I have stopped allowing their opinions to affect me. I have spent enough time feeling guilty for things that are not my responsibility. The situation with Jake and Mia is something they must resolve, and I have no intention of getting involved any further. For the first time, I am putting myself first. That's all for now. I have also blocked my parents everywhere, and I think I will keep my distance from them until, well, I don't know. I don't want to think about that now either. Right now, I just want to focus on myself and move on. If anything else happens, I will update you again. Thank you for all your advice and support. It means a lot to me. Update 3. Once unfaithful, always unfaithful. It's a lesson I learned the hard way and one I will never forget. It's been 4 months since my last update, and for 3 of them everything was wonderfully quiet. Mia and my parents stopped communicating. They finally accepted that I wasn't going to be the mediator or fix the mess that Mia and Jake had created. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I felt at peace. I was no longer consumed by guilt or anger, and I was finally able to focus on myself and my well-being. But, as often happens, the calm did not last forever. At the beginning of this month, I received a message from an unknown number. I soon realized it was Mia. She bluntly informed me that she had called off her marriage to Jake. She said she couldn't go on like this and felt I deserved to know. I didn't reply. I had already made it clear that I didn't want her in my life and I wasn't planning to reopen that door, but Mia wasn't finished. Over the next few days, she sent an avalanche of messages gradually revealing what led her to break up with Jake. According to Mia, the financial difficulties they faced after Jake was disinherited had significantly impacted their marriage. Jake, who had always depended on his parents' money, couldn't handle the pressure of living on limited resources. Instead of working on his problems, he turned to infidelity, and not just with one person. Mia discovered that Jake had been unfaithful to multiple women, including 2 of his bridesmaids. Although I never responded, she could see that I read his messages because I had read receipts turned on. Mia explained how she found out everything. She began to notice that Jake's behavior was becoming more erratic. He was staying out late, making lame excuses, and he was extremely protective of his phone. At first, she attributed it to stress, but one night she received a message from one of her bridesmaids confessing to having had an affair with Jake. The bridesmaid admitted that she hadn't known how to tell Mia, but she felt guilty about keeping the secret. That confession opened a Pandora's box. When Mia confronted Jake, he first denied everything, but finally admitted that he had not only been with that bridesmaid, but also with another and several other women. As I read these messages, I experienced a mixture of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. Jake had finally shown his true nature to Mia, and she was experiencing the same betrayal that I had suffered years ago. It was as if karma had completed its cycle. However, I also felt a twinge of compassion for her. After all, I knew exactly how devastating it was to discover such a betrayal when the person you trust most completely destroys your world. But that compassion was fleeting. Although Mia had been betrayed by Jake, she had betrayed me first. She had made her own choices, and now she was facing the consequences. Mia didn't just tell me what had happened. She started asking me for advice. She wanted to know how I had managed to move on after Jake's betrayal. She was trying to connect with me, saying that we had both been hurt by the same man and that we should support each other. But what caught my attention the most was what she didn't say. In none of her messages did she apologize for what she had done to me. She never acknowledged the pain she caused me by betraying me with Jake. Instead, she acted as if we were in the same situation, as if her current suffering somehow erased the past. I did not respond to any of her messages. I had already devoted more time and energy to her than she deserved. After several days of constant messages, I blocked her again. This time I didn't feel guilty. On the contrary, I felt relief. Relief from not having to deal with her anymore, and relief from seeing that karma had finally caught up with her. Jake had shown Mia exactly who he was, and she had no one else to blame for having ignored all the warning signs. As far as I'm concerned, she's reaping what she sowed. Looking back, I don't regret how I handled the situation at the wedding or in the months that followed. Telling the truth wasn't an act of revenge, it was necessary. Jake and Mia's relationship was built on lies and betrayal, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. I have spent too many years of my life trying to please people who don't deserve my kindness. And I'm done with that. For the first time in a long time, I'm focusing on myself and my happiness, and it feels amazing. I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is take a step back and let karma do its work. So this is it for me. I'm finally going to move on and put all this in the past. It's sad that I've lost my family in the process, but I've been reflecting and I think it's time to seek professional help. I need to process all this properly because I feel like there are a lot of emotions that I've been avoiding facing. Also, I am deeply grateful to each and every one of you who responded and even sent me private messages to see how I was doing. You have been incredibly supportive and, honestly, you made this whole experience much more bearable. Well, then, I bid you farewell.